Well, something's interesting has been coming up. I know. Well, probably you heard it already, or maybe you didn't hear it. But Alan Greenspan, the former Federal Reserve chairman, has called for. Well, we don't need the Federal Reserve anymore. That's what he says. And there's always been speculation. It's 100 years old in 2013. At the end of 2013, right? Or right, it was voted into being, I think it was on Christmas Eve of December 24th, 1913. So it's about 100 years old now, right? Or just about. I'm going to tell you, I have to really go by, like, I don't know, I don't want to really call it senses, but it's quite obvious. These guys are prepping people for stuff. They don't just say stuff like this out of the blue. Why would he say something like that? Right? Was he writing a book? I don't know. But, he's probably prepping people for something. Because, remember saying, like, how is the Federal Reserve going to unwind their balance sheet? It's like $3 trillion. How do they unload all that stuff they bought up, all the toxic assets? They did, and they got the banks out of trouble, but I guess the Federal Reserve now has toxic assets. Somebody made the money, though. It's kind of funny. When you see a toxic asset, it's almost like, somebody sold those buildings, land improvements for so many dollars, and they're worth way more than they should have been, right? Somebody got the money. So somebody got holding the bag, of course, which is how everything works, But Alan Greenspan talking about it ending the Federal Reserve. But let's relate that with something else. Bernanke was talking. They're asking Bernanke about the FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Company and Corporation, and Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. I meant to say like they were saying, will the Federal Reserve backstop it? And basically, he kind of avoided the question because he says, it's not insolvent or anything like that, but it almost did go bust a bunch of times, and they only got enough money. I forgot what the numbers are, but if you look it up, it's like a minuscule amount compared to all the deposits out there. So every bank you walk into, it says the FDIC insures it to $250,000, but in reality, they ain't got the money. But here you have Bernanke kind of sidestepping the question about backstopping the deposits, by using it, shoring up the FDIC if it need be. And then also you have Alan Greenspan talking about the Federal Reserve time has come to an end pretty soon. So if the Federal Reserve actually goes out the window, maybe there's not going to be any backstop for the FDIC at one point in time when all this crisis crap seems like it's brewing. And it's been going on so long, it's almost like, you don't want to cry wolf too much, right? Because then people, most people aren't awake anyway. You probably should tell them, but you shouldn't scream it too loud. But, if you say it too much, it's like, and then nothing happens. You think it's never going to happen, but the writing's on the wall. The thing with Cyprus, I know they upped the percentage on the deposits over 100,000, like 30 or 40% or whatever the hell it is. And you pretty much assume why they did that. It's because the Russians oligarchs got their money out, and that stuff wasn't going to get taxed. So what was left, there was a hell of a lot less to tax, right? I would assume that, right? But the thing is, all these other talking heads out there in Europe land, in Euro land, I guess you would call it, not Europe land, Euro land. The guys that are in control of all the banking system and stuff, making the decisions. They're talking about, giving haircuts to, Spanish depositors in their banks and Italian depositors in their banks. And then there's this other guy, Dijsselbloem, whatever his name was. He said that they're talking about Cyprus, that it could be a template for all the other banks in Europe. And then they kind of like backed away from it. I'm kind of looking at a story here because they said they kind of backed away from the word template, but still they said if the banks can't do it, the shareholders and bondholders will be asked to contribute to recapitalizing the bank, and if necessary, the uninsured deposit holders. So, it almost smells like, you can see what's coming up. It's almost like they tell you ahead of time. So anybody who's got gold and silver, yeah, I know it went down a little bit today. Oh, well, but it's probably not going to be the smartest thing in the world to hold fiat cash, because let me put this scenario out to you. The reason like you don't see assets going up a lot is because the money's not actually in the system where the middle class is, and it's not being circulated in the system. Like when they do quantitative easing, it's basically one asset being swapped on one balance sheet for another. Basically, the Federal Reserve is buying up troubled assets of banks, and then they're telling them in turn they keep dollars. But if people start withdrawing money out of banks and they're scared and they're panicky, they're going to take that money and they're going to buy stuff. They're going to buy stuff. And that will actually cause the prices to increase. And that's when you're going to see the gold and silver go up too, even without a war in Iran. So it's going to be a kind of a slow process, but you can see that what the writing is on the wall. And the vast majority of people don't have gold and silver. They don't. If you told somebody today, silver's going to be much higher and all, it probably, even like when it hits the very final blow off top in 2017 or I think it's going to be 2017. It's about the right year. By using like regular statistics, when a commodity bubble goes, and the three-year cycles, it seems to be peaking up every once in a while, like 2008, 2010, 11. It might be like 2014 and 2017. It might peak up pretty good this year too. But before 2017, silver's going to have a few peaks. It's probably going to have a peak of around 70, 75. Might be a major resistance point. It might be one like 105. But at the final, it might be $400 or $500. But I also want to caution you on this. It's like if you're too concentrated on silver, like you got silver tunnel vision, that's not too good either. Because, even say, I don't know what's going to happen at the very end, but, there could be other, even at one of the intermediate peaks, like in other words, it's not going to just go nice like this up to whatever it goes up to. It's going to go up, down, up higher, up, and finally a blow off top. That's what's going to happen, right? But, if you actually look carefully at what other assets are, that's when you might want to sell silver. Say, for instance, I don't know, like what's a big ticket item, a car or truck or something? Say you're like somebody in business and you want like a diesel truck or something. I mean, that's not something I would be doing, but, you can have it as your subchapter S. You can have it as a write-off, capital. Maybe they got a special rule that year where, they're trying to spur on the economy and they're letting you depreciate that capital asset 50% the first year or something. Or maybe depreciate that capital asset a whole bunch, maybe 100% that whole year. I don't know. Sometimes the government does stuff like that. If you make say you're like an entrepreneur and you have a company and you're just like work for yourself and you have your subchapter S. Well, you might make these other considerations. Silver went up to, I don't know, say, maybe you'll laugh. I'll say maybe one of the intermediate peaks was 105. Some people are thinking, I heard this $100 silver forever, but it's going to get there and go a lot higher. But say it got up to 105, and that wasn't the absolute. Maybe that was not going to be the absolute peak. But maybe the auto industry was hurting so damn bad, and you needed your roofer or something like that, and you decide to buy a diesel truck, and you can run it on oil that's vegetable oil or something like that, and you could write it off the whole capital expenditure as an expense the first year due to some special rules that came out as they're trying to spur on the economy because the auto industry is down. You might want to make that kind of thing. You might want to make that because actually where you put your money the next time is important. Because maybe that can get you a lot more business by having that truck or whatever the hell it is, or that piece of equipment. So wherever you make that next move is important too. You don't want to get too tunnel vision on trying to hit the exact peak for silver, but don't sell it now. I mean, I don't know if it's going to pull back a little more. Somehow I think it's just going to be boring as crap for a while, and it's going to take off and excite the hell out of everybody, and then you're going to make some serious gains. But it looks like the writing is on the wall with this banking crisis garbage, because Alan Greenspan is calling for, the end of the Federal Reserve. We don't need to end the Federal Reserve anymore. And, Ben Bernanke is talking like, he didn't answer the question about, will the Federal Reserve backstop the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation with the bank deposits in the United States? Kind of avoided the question. And I'm thinking, well, if there's no Federal Reserve, we don't have to worry about that happening, right? They won't backstop anything. And they only got a little bit of money compared to what's out there, because they almost went broke a bunch of times. The FDIC did. Now, not that the sky's going to fall right away in the United States, but if you have gold and silver, you're pretty smart. And I'm going to tell you right now, most people, see, that's probably what's going to drive the price up. But now you got all these hints coming out from other people, and saying if a bank can't handle it, we're going to talk, about paying back, the debt problems. He said, we're to talk to the shareholders and the bondholders. Like, why the hell should we be talking to them? If they can't contribute something, they're going to go recapitalize the bank with uninsured deposit holders' money. So they're talking about doing this all over in Europe. So I already see, I pretty much, I'm going to start drawing more money out, maybe. That's what I might do. Actually, I think I'm just going to put it from one bank to a credit union, which I think is solid, more solid than brokerages. I'm probably going to do that piecemeal, or a little bit at a time, because I think it's going to take a while for the sky to fall just yet. But the writing's on the wall big time. And it looks like, I don't know, we got 100 years at the end of this year coming up for the Federal Reserve's birthday, at the end of this year, December 24th. So, hey, what that looks like to me, and plus with Alan Greenspan's remarks, there could be some major changes coming up. Nobody's expecting them. Nobody's expecting them. And, it's a good reason to hold silver and gold. Not to be 100% in it, but being in fiat cash, you might find out fiat cash ain't going to be too cool. Because like I says, if there ever is a bank run, that money's actually going to get in the economy for real. It's not going to be like QE. It's like if Bernanke's decided to actually throw money out of a helicopter into the middle class's hands, like every person, the prices would go up. We don't see that happening like the way it should be happening, the way it would happen if it was actually an economy. It's because when he just buys up, I'm repeating this, but just for emphasis, when he buys up assets, troubled assets out of banks, they're just doing an asset swap. It's being held in a balance sheet someplace where it's not getting into the economy. But if people actually draw money out of the bank accounts, they're going to be like panicky, and they're going to spend it on stuff. And that's why they'll spend it on silver and gold too. And actually, I think silver and gold are going to go up a lot higher than everything else around. So, except maybe food, I'm not sure about that, but probably silver and gold may outpace that. So, the writing's on the wall, man. It's no bullshit. And I know I'm sick of freaking hearing about these silver people telling you it's going to hit 150 and all this crap, but it is. It is. It is. This stuff right now, that's setting up right now, is talking. It's just something you got brewing. And especially when they're talking about getting rid of the, Federal Reserve, and it's coming from Alan Greenspan. He doesn't come out with just off-the-wall statements like that for no reason. You're preparing people for some big changes. And, the thing is, I'd be a little leery about holding silver and gold too long. Because, I'll talk about that some other time because I'll get too long on here. But, when people get too scared of one thing, that's why the price goes up. But, you want to unload it then and maybe get another hard asset or get something you can actually use as an investment to make money. Because, whatever the crowd does, and they're getting all fearful and panicky, whatever the crowd does and they're all emotional, that's usually what you don't want to be doing. So that's my advice on that. But that's a long range advice because it's going to take a while for that to happen. But we could maybe have a big surprise this year too. So just don't sell that silver just yet. And if you don't have any, get some. And if you don't have enough or you don't think you have enough, just keep accumulating until you got a decent amount of reserve. I'd say you should have a good. I say you should have 25% or more of your money in precious metals. I think so. I think it should be that high, not 10%. It should be 25% or more. So anyway, it's going to play out for the few.